This Senegalese is seen as one of the top checkers players of all time. Be they French, Dutch, Swedish, Russian or Belgian, they all pass through Babassi's pots. What makes his story impressive is that his feats were not achieved in our time. I'm not claiming it's easy, but globalization and the internet provide many more ways to get better. Babassi achieved all his feats during the colonial or post-colonial period. Babassi's story is currently in progress. Born in 2005 in Senegal, Babassi grew up in a place where elders played checkers from a young age. If you grew up in Africa, you must have seen your elders sitting and playing checkers. We all watched. That's how Babassi started watching checkers matches. He starts watching, observing and playing a little. A skilled elder dies while this boy is present. A talent. The talent of being a great checkers player. So he takes on the challenge to train him. He trains Babassi, and soon the boy becomes really good. He starts beating everyone in the neighborhood, whether they are elders, older or younger. Everyone falls to him, so much so that he earns the nickname Babassi the Best. It gets even better. He effortlessly dominates every competition hosted in Senegal. All of Babassi's achievements lead him to be noticed by a Frenchman named Émile Biscon, who takes him to France to compete against other French players. I remind you that we are in May. Senegal is not yet independent like many African countries. The perception of black people in the West, as well as on the continent, is that they are not. They have good physical abilities. Intellectually, they are seen as limited. And so, Babassi arrives in France. When he gets to France, he beats everyone in his path. He even wins the French championship. When he wins the French championship, it makes him a contender for the World Championship. He finishes as the runner-up in the World Championship, second to the Russian Vyacheslav. And I remind you that at that time, in checkers, the champions were the Russians, just like the Brazilians in football. No one could win against them. I mean, no one. So Babassi, the young African who got to France at 24, starts defeating all the French. He goes to the World Championship too. He beats everyone. In the final, he loses to the Russian champion. But that's not everything. In mid-1963, the young Senegalese ends up co-champion of the world. And the next year, he is recognized as world champion due to a decision from the International Checkers Federation. But what really went down? Let me explain. At that time, and perhaps even still today, in checkers for world championships, it operated with challengers. That is to say, there were a challenger from Western Europe and probably a challenger from Eastern Europe. So, from Western Europe, Babassi won the tournament in Liège. So, he was the leading challenger to compete for the title of world champion. In the USSR, there was Iker Kuperman, who was also a world champion. He had defeated Vyacheslav, so there were two challengers who had to face each other in the finals to find out who would be the world champion. Except that, as it so happened, the Russians postponed the match for reasons that remain very unclear to this day. Babassi too suffered from hypertension due to his unhealthy diet of junk food. Unfortunately, this unhealthy eating habit didn't offer him any relief. Anyway, the matches were postponed, cancelled, and in the end, it remained that way, as we say. And Babassi was co-champion of the world. Iker Kuperman was co-champion too. However, after all this, the International Federation of Checkers did some investigations and found out that the Russians deliberately postponed and cancelled these matches to evade facing champion Babassi. So, according to the International Federation's decision, Babassi is recognized as the world champion. But what gives a historical aspect to Babassi's history is that he had a unique exhibition match. For those unfamiliar with the world of checkers, it was special because we put together in a room about dozens of players. Some reports say there were 150 players, but I won't go that far. Dozens of players, the videos are compiled. I'll share the video as an example. Dozens of players, and he faced them all at the same time. That is, he passed by one table, played his game. He moved to another table, played his game. Therefore, he faced them all, he defeated them all. Babassi stepped into another dimension of a player. he became one of the most esteemed players worldwide. He challenged the best checkers players around the globe. Obviously, he frequently beat them. Back in Senegal, he even faced the father of former Senegalese president Abdou Diouf. Therefore, Babassi really stepped into an international realm regarding checkers. When the best checkers players worldwide were cited, Babassi was mentioned. This young Senegalese, who only experienced Quranic education and is illiterate by Western schooling, beat everyone in Senegal, arrived in France and triumphed at the World Championships. He managed to defeat Russians, which remains unmatched to this day. Therefore, his story is truly very inspiring. But sadly, on January 20th, 2007, Babassi died in a traffic accident in Senegal. I recounted this story not because it has a pleasant aroma and is nice to share. I shared it so you realize that no one can convince you that black individuals are unable to perform intellectual feats, since checkers is not merely a sport. For a long time, black people were restricted to athletic events and physical activities, but even back then, with limited resources, few instruments, and the status of being illiterate, as is often said, black people succeeded in making great achievements. So realize that in our time, we practically have all the arguments to be able to compete and challenge everyone here. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to this page. Don't hesitate to subscribe to my Instagram page because, as I said in a previous video, I had the impression that my videos were blacklisted because I was posting videos and getting no views. I created another TikTok to check if the video was visible. It wasn't visible even though it was published properly. Thus, my views have fallen sharply. I'm not sure why. I don't agree with anyone. Perhaps it's the algorithm. Anyway, I made an Instagram where I publish my videos as well. So feel free to follow my Instagram. Please follow the YouTube page because there are projects coming, videos like this but much more developed, much more precise, much more detailed. Until then, stay well and subscribe.